That's okay. Joining us now is former prosecutor Elliot Felig and Charles Archer, a former assistant director of the FBI's Criminal Justice Information Services Division. Elliot, it seemed like Comey laid out essentially the basics for an obstruction of justice, but there's a lot that still has to be filled in. What jumped out at you in terms of what's still missing?
Right. Well, in terms of obstruction of justice, a lot of people mistakenly believe that any attempt to influence the administration of justice constitutes obstruction. It doesn't. The statute includes the word corruptly influence. So that's the sticking point, that adverb corruptly. I mean, a lot of things that presidents do or governors do or senators do can influence an investigation or influence the administration of law. The question is, does it rise to the level of corruptly doing so? Typically, that conjures up images of erasing tapes, hiding evidence, bribing people. But does firing someone get there is a much tougher call. But look, if I could take off my lawyer hat for 1 second and play political analyst, what does it say about the state of the Trump presidency that 5 months in, we're beginning tonight, every newscast in the world is beginning tonight by wondering if what happened today constitutes an impeachable offense, constitutes obstruction of justice?
I want to ask you something, Elliot. As a lawyer, listening to Trump's lawyer, it sounded like he wanted to have it both ways. On one hand, Comey's telling the truth when he says the president wasn't investigating him.
Right.
On the other hand, everything else was a lie.
Right, right. I mean, this is the Trump administration in digging itself deeper. Let's remember, okay, President Trump had the authority to said outright, I'm going to pardon him. No one would have questioned that. That wouldn't be obstruction. That wouldn't be this wink, wink, nod, nod, Tony Soprano-esque type of conversations that we're now discussing, that the whole world is discussing tonight.
Charles Archer, what did you make of how Comey did today and the pushback against him?
Well, I think he did very well, and I think the president probably did not push to have the Flynn investigation stopped. It probably was mentioned, but I don't think that it rises to the level of obstruction in the clearest term.
Even though he's asking for the FBI director to meet with him alone, which is obviously a violation of some policies because the attorney general left the room, the president is calling him, he's not going through the normal channels, and he's mentioning that Michael Flynn might be the target of a criminal investigation because Flynn has lied to federal investigators.
Well, I'm not sure it's I know myself, I met privately with President Clinton. I know other assistant directors on up through the chain to the directors have a lot of meetings up on the Hill with congressmen and at the White House. And it does not necessarily rise to a level of suspicion when the Attorney General is there, not there. I recall one time I went with Attorney General Janet Reno, and she certainly stayed in the room, but there was certainly nothing nefarious spoken about.
Chuck, I have a question for you. What happens next to the FBI? Does the new FBI director submit to the president? Do the leaks continue? Do FBI agents take revenge on the president? How does this relationship continue? How does it go on from here?
I think the relationship is perhaps a little bit testy, but all agents are sworn to do their duty, follow the Constitution, follow investigations and the evidence wherever it might lead. I think you'll find the right rank and file of agents yesterday, today, and going forward full of a lot of integrity and doing their jobs the best they can.
Elliot, at the beginning of the hearing on this day, Richard Burr, the Republican chairman, said that it's incumbent now on the president to provide some answers and fill in some of the gaps. The president is, though, not under any obligation to go up to Capitol Hill and testify, but he might face some requests, perhaps from the special counsel, right?
Oh, absolutely. And this is all within Mueller's, area. He's allowed to look at all of this. I would say this: Mueller, at this juncture, is one of the most respected men in all of Washington. I would have said the same thing, though, about James Comey before he got involved in presidential politics. So I'm not sure he'll stay that respected. But for now, Mueller has broad authority. Mueller is widely respected in the law enforcement community and widely respected on both sides of Capitol Hill.
Comey has a lot of credibility, but he's had a tough year, too.
Very.
He got a lot of flack from both sides about mishandling of the email investigation with Clinton, and he said inaccurate testimony about Huma Abedin. If this turns into a he said, who comes out the winner here?
Well, so long as Republicans control both houses of Congress, any talk of impeachment is actually a moot point. And while the Constitution itself is incredibly non-specific on what constitutes impeachment, as a practical matter, it has to go through Congress For now, it's a Republican Congress, so I don't think the president has to worry about that aspect of it.
But let's imagine that Mueller is able to get some headway with Michael Flynn, maybe gets him to cooperate in some fashion. And Mueller then puts together a report that takes a year, 18 months, and then delivers that. Does the equation then change?
Sure. I mean, it's a good chance that Congress will then change, and we'll have different parties controlling perhaps both houses of Congress. Nonetheless, though, Mueller, as soon as he plants his flag on one side or the other, it is going to become another Comey situation where whichever side he disappoints is going to attack his integrity inevitably, and whichever side he pleases is going to say what a great person he is and what a great stand-up civil servant he is.
Chuck, I have a question for you. Do you think that Comey handled what happened with the president correctly? What would you have done in this situation if the president took you aside and said drop an investigation against people that were in his inner circle?
I hope that I would have done the same thing that Director Comey did, and that was to not answer the question, but to stare at him with no emotion, and then go back and make lots of notes.
Yeah.
All right. Chuck Archer and Elliot Felig, thank you both for coming in. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tensions continue to escalate between the United States and Syria.
U.S. military aircraft just shot down a pro-Syrian government drone. The airstrikes on regime forces and equipment come as the U.S. is trying to help rebel groups intensify the battle against Islamic State. We'll have that story ahead.